I am Taeler Hendrix, and you are getting ready to watch Hannibal TV live with me. Stay tuned and hail Hendrix.
This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, and today is my special guest. I have the irresistibly stunning, kind, and intelligent three-time OVW ladies champion, former Queens of Combat champion, former TNA gut check winner, and I guess we'll find out if she's still with Ring of Honor, but she definitely was a former Ring of Honor star. Taeler Hendrix, who's looking great today. How are you?
Well, thank you so much for that marvelous introduction. Wow. I am doing well. Thank you for asking. Yourself?
As good as I can be while this lockdown is still going on, but I'm battling through it.
I think that's where we all are at this point, kind of navigating these unfamiliar waters in different boats, but kind of all trying to help each other out and not crash.
Exactly, but hopefully there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the beginning of Armageddon.
No, knock on whatever you can find.
I have wood here. I like your look that you have going on. Are you actually, would you consider yourself a goth?
Oh, most definitely. Growing up, I kind of always had this, I was that awkward kid in school, for real. When I hit high school, I was one of those people that you would probably describe as, a floater. I took college classes in high school. I did people's homework for them, and I was a varsity athlete, so I was friends with all the jocks. And I grew up in the inner city, friends with all the skateboarders, and I was in the hacky sack groups and bowling club and all this crazy. But growing up, really into the whole thing, punk rock sort of scene, and very 70s too. The 70s and 60s played a lot into how I grew up. So
Now you mentioned punk rock. Who would be some of your favorite punk rock bands?
Ooh, growing up, my mom was very into The Clash. So I listened to The Clash a lot growing up. I listened to Ramones. I listened to Operation Ivy and the Zombies. I was really into heavy metal too. So fans of mine that are diehard fans of mine know that I'm really into Slayer and Hatebreed and Lamb of God and Ghost and stuff like that. But then I also like stuff like Lady Gaga and Hilary Duff and really random stuff like Post Malone and Lizzo. So I guess I like life. So I like so many different things that help me just fit into a lot of different genres and stuff. I think that's the best way to be.
And I heard you did some Taekwondo growing up. How far did you get in that discipline?
Oof. As a kid, I probably got up to, I think I was blue. I got up to the blue belt. It's for anybody that doesn't know, the belts are colored differently than in karate, so it's a little different. And then as an adult, I chose to kind of finish up and not talk about it and kind of keep it to myself, where I became a black belt.
Oh, wow.
It was a lot of fun.
Was it ITF or WTF? Because there was two. When I did it, there was International Taekwondo Federation and World, and there was slightly different styles.
I would say Master Kwan was more international, definitely more ITF, but he was so cool. I met him as a young kid, and I finished with him when I was around 13 years old or so. And then I kind of got to go back as an adult. So yeah, I would say his style never really changed. He kind of just added to and evolved, but it was still more the international, for sure.
Did you ever have to use that to protect yourself at all in your life?
There were situations where I probably should have, but I didn't. And it was more of I probably have more to lose than this person. This person seems like they're just having a really bad day, So it's kind of one of those situations where if you have to use it, you can, but if you don't need to, maybe you shouldn't inflict that sort of harm on someone else. So I've definitely picked and chosen, but if people watch my wrestling, you might actually be able to see some hints of that discipline within my actual wrestling style. So.
Yeah, I noticed you use some kicks and your flexibility seems pretty good with those kicks. I guess that comes from your
Yeah,
Taekwondo.
absolutely. My mom picked Taekwondo out of all the disciplines because she said she felt like it would be more geared towards me personally because I'm 5'7", but I'm mostly leg. I have like no torso. So she felt like that sort of discipline that's very lower body based would be very useful for someone like me. And I think she was right. I think she was onto something. So yeah, I've used a lot of different staying on my feet, so to speak, wrestling wise. And I think that made that very interesting when I started wrestling. Maybe you can elaborate on that with your experience, where if you have an experience in a discipline that teaches you to stay on your feet, and then you train for pro wrestling where you're purposely supposed to fall, it was like it was like night and day. It was very difficult at first to purposely go through that when you were taught to.
So I understand that you weren't allowed to watch wrestling when you were a child.
No. And the more I do my own podcast, the more I find that, I guess a lot of other people grew up that way too. I thought it was kind of just me and the way my mom chose to raise me, but I guess not. So it's really funny, fast forward and I became a pro wrestler.
So is it something you wanted to watch and she just thought it was too violent or too sexual or something?
I think both. See, my mom grew up actually liking wrestling in the 70s. My mom was the youngest of five kids. And so, like, she had an older brother and three other sisters. And so by the time she came along, some of them were into wrestling. And back home, they had what was called Lincoln Park. And all these really amazingly talented, awesome, larger than life wrestlers used to come to Lincoln Park, I guess. And my mom has this awesome story. I love when she tells it. Her face is just so funny and genuine. She talks about how when she was like 4 years old or something, really, really little, really small, and she met Andre the Giant at Lincoln Park. And he scared the bejesus out of her by putting his hand, and it covered her whole entire head. And that was like something she never forgot. But she grew up on like Chief J Strongbow and Killer Kowalski, Tito Santana, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. That was the kind of wrestling my mom grew up on. And then to kind of have a daughter who's super, super itty bitty young during the Monday Night Wars, it was kind of very different to the point where she's like, oh, I don't know if this right now is appropriate for, like a 6-year-old little girl to be watching. So yeah, I wasn't allowed to watch it. I had to sneak.
So did that make you like it more almost because it was forbidden?
Yeah, it really did. I was so intrigued. I played softball my whole life. I had scholarships for it to go to college and stuff. And the reason why I bring that up is because one of the girls I played with, I'm still in contact with her to this day. I'm so grateful for her. She loved wrestling and she was actually allowed to watch it. So I'm gonna date myself right here. She would tape episodes of Raw, SmackDown, Confidential, Sunday Night Heat, and Velocity for me to watch at her house on VHS tape. And that's how I got to see China, Victoria, Trish Stratus, Eddie Guerrero, like so many like crazy cool things. And then finally, after getting grounded and grounded and grounded and stuff, my mom just gave up and was like, "Fine, you can watch it now."
So was it pretty cool to appear on Vickie Guerrero's podcasts recently if you were a fan of Eddie?
Oh, absolutely. I have always loved Vickie Guerrero, and I get along very well with her daughter, Shawl. And I just love, I don't know, there's a lot of similarities between her and some of the things that she went through and me growing up with my mom. So that was a really awesome bonding moment to hear some things from Vickie that I really felt would resonate with my mom. And I got to share that with my mom and stuff. And then to be such a fan of her former husband's, and then to just get the insight behind his work ethic and the person he was, not just in the ring or on the road, but also at home. It was a lot of fun, and I got to talk with her about a lot of different things that, like writing a book. She was writing one as well that's going to come out this year. Liking different shows on Netflix. It was just a really awesome, really cool bonding experience.
I heard you were also a museum curator at one point. You did an internship or something?
Oh wow! I think you were the first person to ever talk to me for, an interview or anything like that that's ever brought that up. So thank you for that. Yes, I was. In high school, I was in a bunch of different programs that did community service and did like technology type programs and stuff. And one of them was I got to choose an internship that wasn't paid or anything like that. And I was the first person in over a decade to choose going to this museum. And so they actually had gotten rid of the position, but when they heard how much I really wanted it, they opened it back up and decided to give me a shot. And I was so excited. It's so beautiful. Some people even get married there. It's called the Roach Jones Duff House and Garden Museum. It's only ever been owned by 3 families. And one of the people that helped build the house had like one of the first telephones in the entire area. Like, it's just so cool. They helped fund the bridge that connects my hometown to the connecting town. And I got to touch actual artifacts, like the book from Thomas Paine called Common Sense. I got to touch like a first edition copy of that, which is crazy because we read about that in our history books in school. I got to catalog other books and different sets of china and clothes. And one time I dressed in this bunny suit, which is really funny because years later in WWE, I was a rosebud with the bunny. So I know what it's like to be in that bunny suit. But I dressed in the bunny suit for like a community service Easter. And so I got to be the Easter bunny for all of these local children that came to the museum to do Easter egg hunts and stuff. So I really loved doing that because archaeology, if I never made it in wrestling, archaeology was going to be one of the things that I went after. So it was a really cool experience, not to be like.
Was the museum haunted by any chance?
Oh, probably. I mean, it was kind of creepy at night, not going to lie, but it was also really cool and really beautifully done. But I grew up in a haunted house, so like that was kind of just part of the norm for me growing up in Massachusetts.
Yeah, we've heard a lot. This channel also covers some ghost stuff, and I've heard Massachusetts is one of the more haunted states. Could you share with us your story of your interaction with the haunted house?
I actually discuss some of that on my YouTube channel and my blog. I call it Growing Up Haunted. I think I might turn it into a book series. I'm really excited about it. Oh man, and you're right. Now, Massachusetts is one of the most haunted states in the US, but New England as a whole is actually the most haunted region in the continental US. And I believe New Orleans is actually like the most haunted city, I think, from what I understand in like research and stuff like that. So it's kind of really cool. But I grew up in a house that was a gambrel style, which is very similar to the Amityville Horror House, if anybody is wondering. My house was built in 1912. I moved into it in the early to mid 90s. And my grandmother actually died in the house. She died of cancer in our house when I was about 5 years old. I remember that whole experience. And my grandmother was the 4th or 5th person, I think, to die in that house since 1912. And like all these crazy things would always happen in our house. And one of my favorite stories is kind of a 3-part story series that happened over like a year and a half time frame. So it was like this evolving story that, because I was living it, I didn't realize it was an evolving story. It was kind of just my daily like terror, basically growing up. Every year, my sister would get one of those giant balloons. I don't know if anybody remembers these. And if you hit them, they played music and they made a little bit of noise for like 20 seconds. They would sing like happy birthday or celebrate, whatever. And every year, our cats would destroy the balloons, play with the strings, pop the balloons, whatever. And this is important just based off of how the story goes is the way the house was built. When you walk through the front door, you immediately have a staircase of 14 stairs that kind of go do, 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 and then you come to the second floor landing. It's 14 stairs. I know because later on the story you'll find out why. And then you continue through the last 4 feet of the hallway. You're facing a closet. To your right is our dining room. To the left is the living room. So one year, for whatever reason, my mother, my cousin, and myself were sitting at home in the living room, and the cats, it's been months, it's early spring, the cats have not destroyed that balloon. She gets it every year in January, and within 2 weeks it's destroyed. So we're in early spring. It's still around, it's still kicking, it's still playing music, whatever. It's chilling in the dining room where it always ends up. Well, we're watching one of my favorite ghost shows called A Haunting, ironically enough. And we're talking, we're watching the show, and then all of a sudden, my back is to the wall where the hallway is, but my cousin and my mom can see it. And I just see their face just drop. And I'm like, what's going on? And I look and I see something move out of the corner of my eye. And lo and behold, I watched, and this balloon is like this, just coming right into our living room, not bobbing like a balloon that has helium would do. Nothing. It's like as if somebody was holding it, perfectly still, walking with it, and it makes a perfect U-turn, stops, just chills there for a second as if to be like, yay, hey, I'm here, what's up? And then continues back out in that U-turn fashion and goes back into the dining room. And we are just in stunned silence. Like, what is that? What?
Wow.
So then we fast forward several months later. I'm told if I don't clean my room, I'll be grounded for 2 weeks. That was like the typical grounding. So I'm home alone. I'm upstairs on the second floor cleaning my room. This room, for whatever reason, had a lot of activity. Even my sister will tell people, like, that room was really weird. It had this big walk-in closet on the opposite end of the room, and 4 babies over the course of that house being built were born in that room. Which is very kind of cool and interesting. But so I'm home alone, I'm cleaning. It's right before my birthday, so it's June now. We passed January, we passed spring, we're in June. And I'm home alone, and I open up my closet door, and boom! Hit me so hard in the face with that darn balloon. So hard in the face that I stumbled backwards, hit near my bed, run around my bed, terrified, run all the way down, and like pretty much just fell down all 14 stairs, counted them on my way down, went out the front door, and like waited for my family to get home. It was so crazy. And oh my goodness, Hannibal. We had old-fashioned stairs, had, you know, the ballast poles and the banisters. Well, one of the caps on the banister used to come off, and for years I would stick notes down because I thought it was cool that one day if anybody remodeled, they would find all my notes and toys and things when I was a kid, like a time capsule. So my sister and I decided that we would make a time capsule outside too. So we bury it, we're really, really cool. And I put a note in the banister telling, you know, whoever, hey, we made a time capsule. If you want to dig it up someday, here's where you find it, next to blah, blah, blah tree, whatever. And my sister doesn't really know that I do that yet, right? And it was so weird. My sister goes and tells me, hey, ghost friend knows about your letters in the stairs. I'm like, what the heck is that? Who's ghost friend? What are they talking about, and why are you talking to a ghost? Like, it was so crazy. And apparently she had this ghost friend who lived in the cellar who used to talk to her all the time. It was a man. And so that is like a little child, like in and of itself, like poltergeist. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. And it scared me when she told me that. So then I ran to the closet pile wallpaper. We never read it. And it almost like remnant of like the Harry Potter closet. He lives in the closet. And I go in there and I sit down, like freaked out, like who tells somebody that they have a ghost friend, like whatever. I'm sitting down, and as I turn on the light, I saw something on the floor, and it was a letter. And what's really weird about this letter, guys, is that there was no way that letter could have been there. And the reason why I know that is because I had written it several years earlier, announcing that I had a baby sister. I wrote in the stairs after my little sister was born. My sister's about 7.5 years younger than me.
Wow.
And I was really excited about it. I wrote a frame paper with a giant and it scared the crap out of me. So like something had to go deep down several years into the banister of stuff that I had put in there, dropped in there, so to speak. Like you couldn't reach down that far. It was really deep. So like stuff like that would happen all the time. Lights would flicker, things would go missing. In the other bedroom upstairs, like if you turned to a certain station, it would automatically turn back to country music. Like weird things would happen in the cellar. Like that house was weird, but I like the balloon story because it's like 3 stories in one. But that stuff happened all the time. It was so scary. It was crazy.
Did you ever try and use a Ouija board or anything to talk to it?
Mm-mm. That I grew up with a mom that was pagan, so we were very much introduced to a healthy respect for the non-living. Let's just say, my mom always told us never to mess around with that kind of stuff because you don't know what you're inviting around. You don't know how to control it, and it's basically like opening the door to your entire neighborhood and expecting nothing to happen. Like eventually somebody's going to come around and notice your door and walk right in and make themselves at home, good or bad. So that was the healthy respect for the things that go on the night that I grew up with. Never did anything like that. I was tempted to maybe leave like a recorder and record when I wasn't around, but I didn't want to know the answers, man. I didn't. I was fine when I left at 22, and I'm good with it. It's somebody else's problem now. You know what I mean? Like it's known as the neighborhood haunted house. So I mean, it's not a secret.
Oh, cool. Would you ever want to live in a haunted house again?
Maybe. I think almost anything has the ability to be haunted, especially, because it doesn't necessarily have to deal with the house itself. It could be the land. It could be an object, it could be water. There's a lot of science behind a lot of very interesting things. And, people, I don't think that there's people that are non-committed. I think you either believe or you don't. And it's as simple as that. But when you experience a lot of the things, like especially the lamp story that I have, if you want me to share that later on, I totally will. It's really interesting.
You also did some political stuff at one point. I guess you did some political protests. What was that all about? Is that something you wanted to get into before you got into wrestling?
I was already in wrestling when I was doing all of these things. I started wrestling when I was like a fresh 17-year-old. Like I was only 17 for like 2.5 months or so by the time I started wrestling. And I had like no training when I started like balleting and wrestling and stuff. And then yeah, so I was wrestling before I went to prom. I was wrestling before I had my own car. I was wrestling before I graduated high school. I was very, very young and very naive. And I'm thankful. I tried to start at 14 because in Rhode Island you could train at 14, but you couldn't start wrestling on shows until 17. And I'm so glad my mom said no. I went to her when I was 14. She said no. I went to her when I was 15. She said no. Went to her when I was 16. She said no. And then 17, she kind of gave up the fight and was like, okay, if that's what you want to do, then just be careful. So when I was doing like political stuff, when I was an intern at the museum, all of that stuff, I was already wrestling. It's very interesting how to multitask like all of those different life changes all at once that you're not really, there's no guidebook for that. But I wrote speeches for like different like politicians or, different like political projects. I did go to Capitol Hill. It was called Focus the Nation. I was in college at that point, and there was like more than 10,000 students from across the country gathered in DC. It was amazing. We were fighting for to change hunger and homelessness, and we were fighting for more readily available and affordable education. And we were also fighting for cheaper prices for textbooks. Just for context, one class I needed 8 books to take in college, just that one class alone, 8 books. And one of the books was over $200. So that's kind of just a behind context. I also met and worked with some of the people that worked on the plastic bottles campaign that ended up passing in California. I also worked on what was called the Global Warming Solutions Act, and basically that wanted to cut fuel emissions specifically in Massachusetts by 20% by 2020 and 80% by 2050. And we had like all kinds of science and backers. We were backed by a state representative and a senator. I forgot their names now, too many hits to the head, I guess. But I got an award from the state representative who also at one point, I think, gave me a recommendation for college and stuff.
For your professional wrestling training, what made you start training and what wrestling school did you go to?
One of my first notable trainers was Spike Dudley. I trained with him a lot. Matt Teven, Mike Bennett, and myself were all in his classes, but Mike Bennett had been wrestling longer than both myself and Matt Teven at that point. Let's see, I trained, I think my most valuable training, honestly, Hannibal, came from OVW, to be honest. And I was already in the business for a little over 5 years when I made the choice to go there. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made for my career. That got me my gut check opportunity. That got me my WWE extra spots. That got me my WWE tryout. That got me in and out of situations at Ring of Honor. That got me looks in for Mexico, across the UK, like whatever I wanted. And it was that sort of training that really did that and gave me a really huge appreciation, because I set up rings for like 10 years out of my 13-year career. I helped with production. When I was really green, I carried some people's bags and got them coffee. I sold other people's merch. So I definitely had like a respect, a deep respect for the business. I set up chairs. I learned the proper way how to wrap up the cords for the HD cameras when they were done, like all of that stuff. And a lot of that came from OVW training and that old school Rip Rogers training.
So what made you move out to OVW? That's a good distance away from Boston.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever lived like on my own away from home. Back home in Massachusetts at that time, especially if you were in college, it was very difficult to hold down a job, go to college, try to wrestle, and afford an apartment. It's too expensive. Way too expensive, especially if you're on your own. You don't have the possibility of roommates, and plus the roommate situation is always dodgy. So I was getting very stale. I was very frustrated. I felt like I wasn't learning enough anymore at that point. I had already attended multiple New England schools, wrestling the same girls a lot. I was getting very stale and very stagnant, and I wanted to elevate. I wanted to get better. I wanted to keep learning. And so I was presented with two opportunities. At that point, I had already had some experience with training camps. I don't know if people still do those prior to COVID-19, but I had done 2 Kevin Kelly seminars. One of them I did with the woman who's now Sasha Banks. Her and I did one of his, and I did another one. I did several Ring of Honor tryout camps and seminars. I did a JJ Dillon seminar and a Killer Kowalski seminar and stuff like that. And then I did an OVW seminar. So I was presented with a choice, and it was a very controversial choice at that time in wrestling. It was around 2010 when I was making this decision. I had the opportunity to either go to OVW, which had a track record from being a developmental system for WWE and producing people that still talk about it today, or gambling and going down to Florida and seeing what I could do down there without like a regular training school sort, of that sort of OVW caliber. I saw a lot of people going straight to Florida and not getting signed for years and years and years. And I was like, well, you know what? Let me be different. I went to their tryout camp. I liked the area. I learned a lot just in that camp. So maybe I'll learn a ton more by actually paying dues and training there. So that's what I did. I picked up everything I possibly could in my Ford Focus and my cat and drove through a tropical storm that hit the East Coast early, and drove across the country with less than $1,000 to my name, no job set up, and a random place to live with people I'd never met before. And which led me to end up living out of my car for 2 days with my cat until I found like a better place to live and kind of like set myself up and stuff. My car broke down on the way there. So then that $1,000 that I barely had became like $700 and so forth. But that's why I always tell people, when there's a will, there really is a way. You have to bet on yourself and realize that you want your circumstances. Your circumstances don't define you. How you choose to overcome and move forward from your circumstances, that is what makes you the person that you're supposed to be. So I can laugh at those experiences now of sleeping in my car at rest stops, which I highly don't recommend, living out of my car, paying for training in pennies and stuff like that. Like it's all a part of the journey, but it made me the person I am today. So I don't, even the bad stuff, I wouldn't change it, because I can't guarantee that I would be the person talking with you right now. And I kind of like that. So the good and the bad, you got to take it both and find a good within the bad,
I have interviewed Rip Rogers on this channel. He's a unique character. Do you have any interesting stories about him?
too many, too many. And and it kind of like, it's funny because like you would think these things are funny, especially you with how long your career has been and the things that you have experienced. I know you can relate to that. So starting as like a little young and naive 17-year-old girl, I got desensitized and had no idea. So when I would call my mom and be like, hey, so-and-so said this, 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 and this, or they want me to do this, she'd be like, what? And I'd be like, isn't that funny, Mom? And she'd be like, no, it's not funny. And I would just be like, Mom, that's wrestling, man, you know? But at the end of the day, I think what I liked most about training with Rick Rogers is he made me prepare for almost anything. And I mean almost anything. His training is, don't go into it unless you are determined to ace it, because it will eat you alive. But if you take it seriously and you put your all into it, his style and his training and the OVW system itself can turn you into somebody. Like their banner, Tomorrow Superstars Today, that isn't a joke. If you go to WWE backstage, a lot of them spent time at OVW. So when I did go up to WWE and they found out I was from OVW, I had like a little family like protecting me. So like nobody like played ribs on me. Nobody like tried to like mess with me, nothing. Like it was nice. It was like, oh wow, this is like what protected kind of feels like. It's amazing, you know. And his training and the OVW training really, really elevated me to a point where I didn't even notice until well after I was gone. And I was like, holy crap, I only knew how to do this because I bet on myself and I made that risk to go there and train there. And honestly, that's how I got my WWE tryout, because I was put in an impossible situation as an extra, and somehow it turned into gold. And that's the amazing part about that sort of training, is because it's so repetitive, it's always here. Even if you never think about it ever again, it's imprinted. It's here and it's in your back pocket. Like if the ropes break, I know how to finish the rest of my entire match. I know how to call an hour match on the fly if I have to, because to pass this class, you had to learn that. I knew how to do a 6-man tag without being able to call anything in the back. You know, he puts you in all these different chaining situations and different like wrestling circumstances. We cut promos every single Saturday and Sunday. So when, you know, somebody like William Regal, when he would tell extras, you know, there's no excuse not to be able to cut a promo. You brush your teeth every day, you shower, you drive to work, blah, 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 blah. Those are all opportunities to be cutting promos. So don't come to WWE and not know how to talk on a mic and all this stuff. And it was like, oh, wow, you know, we're learning that at OVW. That's great. We know how to hit time cues and all this other stuff. And that's all because of people like Rick Rogers and Al Snow and the OVW system.
Now, Al Snow, I think I've done 4 or 5 interviews with him now. He's very popular on this channel. Did you have any experiences with him you could share with us that might be unique to you?
Yeah, I mean, Al Snow was in charge of the TNA developmental system when it came to OVW. And once you got signed to TNA in developmental system, you didn't get to train with Rick Rogers anymore. You strictly trained with Al Snow after that. So it was like a completely different sort of mindset after that. You went from the repetitive style and very abrasive style of Rick Rogers to an all of a sudden more methodical storytelling television style of Al Snow. So it was kind of like a really well-rounded. My funny Al Snow story, I don't even know if he remembers this, but I do. I will never forget it. So I got gut check. Everybody knows that. I was the first girl picked for gut check, and I was the first gut check contestant that was completely live on television. So the first gut check, the match was taped, the promo was taped. The second gut check, the match was taped, the promo was live. And then mine, the match and the promo were just live. Like I didn't get to rehearse, nothing. It was just all live. And we had to like hit a commercial cue and like all this stuff that I had never, I practiced, but it's completely different when you're live on Spike TV, which costs thousands upon thousands of dollars. You know, with I think they were hitting around 2 million views or 1 million views, something like that at that point. So I get gut check, right? I've already done my match. So then I have to come back another week, the next week. And the next week is the promo, the reveal. And I'm on the same flight as Al Snow, Hannibal. And in my head, I'm like, don't ask him, Taylor. Don't be weak sauce. Don't be a little bitch. Like, ask him. Don't ask him. Just do your job. Whatever happens, you know you're just a body to fill a spot. So make the best of it. Make them have to say yes, even though they were supposed to say no. Make them feel like they would look stupid if they say no. Even though you know you're just a body, that's what you got to do. Get yourself noticed, even if you were just some random default player number one. So that was the mindset, right? And that was the reality of the situation. So I'm on the same flight as Al Snow, and something happens to our plane. We're going from Louisville to Atlanta, Atlanta to Orlando. Something happens to our plane. They're completely calm, and they're like, you can feel free to get off, but if you get off, you have to take your bags and wait to come back on. If you stay on, you can stay on, take a nap, whatever. So I'm waiting, and he's waiting. We're in different seats for a little over an hour. And then the microphone and the pilot come back on and say that we have to get off the plane. There's been a fire inside the engine part, something to do with like the alternator or something. And we're like, whoa, we've been on a plane that's been on fire, and we didn't know. So then we're stuck in Atlanta, and we're waiting at least 5 hours, maybe more. We're starting to wonder if we were going to make it to Orlando for Impact at the Universal Studios. And I remember Al Snow saying, "Man, Taylor, I could have gotten us a rental car. And we could have driven to Orlando by now." And the whole time we were sitting there for more than 5 hours, and I never once asked him if I was going to win gut check. Nothing. We just talked about everything else. And then finally I get there, and they don't tell me nothing. I just have to go out there and cut a promo, and they made sure that I had to hit a certain time cue, and I did, and I was like, yes, my project will be so proud. It was so funny. And then they start saying the yeses and the nos and stuff, and it gets to Al Snow, and he gives this little tiny spiel, and then he says no. And I was like, right then and there, I wanted to kick his teeth in so bad. I was like, wait a second, this whole time, this whole trip, you were going to say no? And then all of a sudden, here comes Taz and Bruce Pritchard, and they say yes. I think one of them was supposed to say no. I get signed. The whole arena erupts. It was just so crazy. I was like, who would have thought some random young girl from Massachusetts would be getting like a standing ovation, people cheering like crazy in Orlando, Florida. So it was such a gratifying experience to be like, wow, like this is what this feels like. This is amazing. I always want to feel like this. It was so cool. You know, this nobody, this one girl revolution. And it was just amazing. And that's one of my favorite Al Snow things. So then I'm like, Al, really? Really, Al? And he's just like, you know, in his Al fashion. And fast forward to him being the owner of OVW now, and I think he's doing such an amazing job. Like, I'm almost jealous that stuff wasn't happening when I was at OVW. I'm like, man, that setup looks so cool. This TV stuff and production looks so cool. I'm jealous.
What was the gut check contract like? Was it like a year deal? What kind of deal was it?
Because I didn't have a lawyer and stuff like that, Danny Davis helped me look over my contract. He was the owner at the time of OVW, and he actually, you know, founded OVW and stuff. So he helped me look over. He was kind of like a father figure to me, and it was a very exclusive style contract. Like, I couldn't do any independence unless I got it pre-approved. If I was gonna lose, because I was OVW champion at the time, I couldn't lose clean. It had to be dirty, so I didn't bury the OVW belt at that time. I couldn't be on anybody else's television, or my contract would basically be like forfeit. I also had a no compete clause, so I had to wait 6 months before I was in contact with anyone in any way, whether it was email, phone call, text, whatever. 6 months. And my original contract didn't pay me for my likeness, so they had to send a different contract, and then that clause was in it, and then it had like a small sum and stuff. And yeah, that was the developmental contract. I think it's a lot different than now.
I don't even think Impact does developmental anymore because it's downsized so much since then. Because 2010 would have been the peak of the ratings that they were getting, right?
I think, because I know Dutch Mantel, I think around that time was still booking and writing for some of the knockouts, and some of that stuff was amazing. Some of the knockouts had like 2 and 3 segments on the show, and they were some of the highest rated segments. I remember one of the statistics for myself when in 2012, I believe. Yes, 2012. Myself versus Lisa Marie Varon got a 0.97 out of 1 million ratings, and I was a nobody. And the only people to beat us on that whole first half of the show was their champion at the time, who was Austin Aries. So I thought that was a really cool accomplishment as like a nobody who wasn't known at all, working with Lisa Marie Varon, and we were able to engage, very close to 1 million. That's really, I don't know, to me that was like a really cool accomplishment that I'll never forget. Like I was really proud of that. Like 0.97, almost 1 million on this like nobody girl that nobody knows.
Yeah. I mean, that's better than AEW is doing now. I don't think they get between 600 and 750,000 now. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, that's really good. I understand Dixie Carter was a little rude to you. Is that true?
I didn't get to really deal much with Dixie Carter. I don't think I was very high on her radar. I think a lot of the other knockouts were a lot more important. And like I said, I really wasn't meant to have that job. I was just a body, and I genuinely feel that I was like a little girl on a roster full of women. These girls had WWE experience and money. They knew about fashion and makeup and what looked good and how to pose for photo shoots and all this other stuff. I had none of that experience. I was like we discussed in the beginning, I was like this goth kid who wore hand-me-downs and used clothes from thrift stores like Savers. And I wasn't allowed to wear makeup growing up. I got grounded for wearing black mascara. So I didn't have any of that experience. I didn't grow up in a girly house. I played sports, a lot of sports, and I read books and stuff. Like that was like the upbringing I had. So when I go to, television, I don't know how to do my own hair, my makeup, and I don't know what colors look good on my skin. And then plus they wanted me to be super tan. It wasn't working. My last appearance, this is really funny, is my last ever appearance was with Vickie James. I love her to death for that entire experience. God, I love her so much for that. But in person, Hannibal, I looked like an Oompa Loompa. It was so bad. In my head as I'm walking, I'm like, like you just have to laugh, because if you're not going to laugh, you're going to cry. Just because of how bad it was. I did 2 level 14 competition spray tans, like the bodybuilding, to try to look as tan as I could. And then I went to a hair salon, and this is why to this day I dye my own hair, because of experiences like this. I asked for something very specific, and I was still supposed to have bright red hair, but I wanted these really cool dramatic streaks. Well, the girl pretty much dyes my hair like what looks like a purple black, which is, I didn't have permission to do. It wasn't the instructions I gave the stylist. I could have gotten in very big trouble. And so in person, I have like the completely wrong hair, super, super dark. I look orange, and then I go out on TV and I look like a normal person. Because of all the HD lighting, it just distorts so much. And then even in the footage, I'm still whiter than Vickie James. It's like, how does that happen? And then my hair looks red. It's like so crazy. But that's like some behind the scenes little humor at my own expense. But she really fought for me to have more in that match. A lot of people don't know that either. I wasn't supposed to get a lot of those moves in. I was supposed to basically just get, for the most part, jobbed out. And she went to the agent and like fought for me to have more time with her on TV, which I thought showed a lot of trust. And I felt really honored that she wanted to share that time with me, because it was during her heel run where she was, targeting Velvet on the mic and saying she was a better champion and she's not going to overlook talent like Taeler Hendrix. It was something like that in her promo and stuff. And she actually fought to give me more stuff to do in the match and more time on screen. I thought that was really cool.
Well, I'm impressed that you do your own hair, because I was telling someone yesterday, I think you have the best hair in wrestling for a female, so that you're dyeing it yourself is even more impressive.
Bless your heart. Thank you. That makes me feel good. Yeah, I used to look down on myself for that kind of stuff, because I didn't have a lot of money growing up. And like, when you get into wrestling and you see girls like those knockouts at that time, they were amazing looking from head to toe. And at that point, I was just in my early 20s. I haven't even had my first pedicure yet. Like, that's how, when I say I was naive, I really genuinely mean I was not girly and I was naive. I didn't have a pedicure until I was like 25 years old. And actually, a knockout took me. Sojo Bolt took me for my first pedicure when I was 25 years old. I didn't know about fake eyelashes. I knew nothing about hair extensions. I had hair extensions once in my life for prom because I chopped all my hair off when I was in high school and had that short spiky hair in the back and like the long fronts. Yeah, I was a real goth kid, I'm telling you, like I really was. So I had these hair extensions that were glued to my head and nobody told me how to take them out. So I pulled them out and like pulled my hair out. Like it was bad. So yeah, I was not girly at all. And I used to look down on myself basically because there was these girls, you know, looking so amazing. They go to the hair salon. They have the best of the best with their nails, their makeup, their hair. They look fabulous. And then here I am, like, I do my own nails. I do my own hair. I do my own hair extensions. I don't have them in right now, but I do my own hair extensions and I have to do my own makeup, you know. And now I'm kind of proud of that instead of ashamed because, I mean, coronavirus, I'm pretty self-sufficient at this point. So it kind of worked out in my favor, but it took a very long time to be like, you know, you shouldn't be like looking down on yourself. You should be like, oh, wow, I'm not just a survivalist. I'm also a savvy little thrifter and I'm thriving instead of being like, oh, woe is me.
So I guess your WWE experiences would have been in between TNA and ROH?
Yes, I started being an extra for. Oh, yeah. So June 6th is like a really big joke for me because it's the day before my birthday, and it happens to be ODB's birthday is June 6th. And June 6th of 2012 was when I found out I was going to officially, like I had heard rumors and they said it was most likely going to be me, but officially in June 6th, I found out that I was definitely going to be the first female for gut check. And then the gut check happened on like the 22nd of June or something like that. 1 year later, June 6, 2013, is my last appearance with Mickie James. And then like a month after I get released. And then fast forward, June 6, 2014 is my first extra appearance for WWE. June 2015 is the last day of my WWE tryout. Fast forward to June 6, 2016, I was finishing a really cool Ring of Honor loop that I was doing at that time. And then June 6, 2017, I'm doing a television taping for MPWL versus Lucha Patron. So June 6 has always been like a very lucky day for me. But yeah, that happened in between TNA and Ring of Honor.
So was that just you applying to be an extra, or did someone from OVW recommend you?
I think both. I was registered on the website to be an extra, but I also know that I was never told who, so I can't name any names because I don't know. But I remember Danny Davis telling me that about a month or two before my contract went out with TNA, that WWE was calling about me, and that he'd put in a good word. And then shortly after my TNA release, I remember because I had just finished a match where I was wearing my black and white gear. And somebody got this tan makeup all over it. Disaster. I remember that. And I heard that WWE had called again, but you know they didn't contact me or anything. And then I was registered on the website. And then fast forward, I think Detroit was my first extra appearance for WWE. That's where I met people like Eva Marie. I met Cameron. I met like a bunch of people. Let me see. Yeah, and that's how it kind of started. And then it started happening more from there because I was registered on the website and they started to be more familiar with me and my work and stuff. And then just under a year later is when I got my tryout. But one of the experiences as an extra, I believe to this day, is how I got that tryout.
And which one was that? What happened?
It was in Michigan. And it was myself, Scarlett Bordeaux, Ruby Riot, a Canadian, Leah Von Dutch, a girl that hadn't had any matches yet. She had just started training at OVW like a month earlier. I had met her there. Her name was Hannah. She's since gone on to do a couple things with TNA. And then some men as well that were extras. And we get told it's a 3-day loop. So we were there for the pay-per-view on the Sunday. Then we had the Monday Night Raw and then the tapings for SmackDown. So we found out on Monday that we could all have matches on Tuesday because William Regal was definitely going to be there. You always have the matches when William Regal was there. which is from my experience. I know it can be different for others. So I had this match planned with Leah Von Dutch. Scarlett Bordeaux was going to wrestle Ruby Riot. And then there was some of the men, including Jimmy Jacobs. Jimmy Jacobs did the extra spot too at that time. And that was right before they signed him to be like a writer and stuff. So yeah, I had brand new gear made up. It was like the debut of like my new look that you would end up seeing at Ring of Honor. And I remember two of the agents came over to me and told me that they wanted me to be judged on my workability and not my assets. And so I had to go change out of my gear. They said that they didn't want like other women being jealous or something. So I was like, okay, so now I'm feeling like really nervous and really like crappy and all this other stuff. So I'm heading to the back. I put on my yoga pants, my wrestling boots and knee pads, and then I had this aerial tank top. And I'm like, I look like such a dork, right? Like red hair, wearing an aerial tank top. I mean, come on, Taylor. Like, how are you going to pull this off? Like, what are you doing? Yeah, this is bad self-talk. And so I'm like all down and like nervous and like, oh, great. Instead of looking like a superstar, I look like I don't know my hand from my elbow. I walked by Brandy Rhodes and she basically gave me this really awesome uplifting compliment about how my shirt and I looked alike and it looked really adorable and stuff. And I was like, wow, you know, she didn't need to say that. She had no idea why I was in that outfit. So I just thought that was really nice. I continued on my way. And when I get back into the arena area where the ring is, I find out that in my absence, I was elected to wrestle not once, which I already knew, twice, because nobody else wanted to have that match. And I was like, oh, okay. So elect the girl that wasn't there to defend herself. Awesome, right? I'm sure you've seen it. So the girl Hannah, I guess while I was gone, decided that she wanted to wrestle, and everybody had their pre stuff, wanted to show WWE scouts their best possible selves. It makes sense, whatever. And so I got elected to wrestle her. And by the time I get back and I find this out, there's no more talking at all. Like you now have to go watch the matches. And while I was gone, because there was an extra match added, my match got moved. So instead of being match number 1, I was match number 3. And then there was 1 or 2 matches, and then I had to wrestle again. So my first match didn't go so great. And so then I have to wrestle this girl that's never wrestled before, right? And I remember on my way back, Hannibal, walking by everybody to go back to change out of my gear, I heard her say something about a sunset flip, right? Just in passing. I didn't pay it any mind. So a Ring of Honor referee is also at this tryout. He wanted to get looked at to be a WWE ref. I'm going through the ropes like this. I'm going to get in, Hannibal, and he goes, so what's the finish? And I looked at him and I was like, I have no idea. And I gave him a smile, and then I acted like I was talking crap. I knew I was going to be a heel. I had to be. There was no other way around it. But, you know, I'm trying to figure out, flying by the seat of my pants, basically. And then I get in. I'm finally in. I noticed, like, there's a pretend camera that nobody else noticed. I was like, I thought they weren't doing the camera thing. So then in my head, I was like, if I see a camera, I'm going to play to it, and I'll be the only one that's going to play to it. Watch. And I was, but I'll get to that. And I turn back and I look at the ref and I'm like, it's going to be a sunset flip. And I decided right then and there that the finish to my match was going to be a really quick sunset flip. And I told him, I was like, go tell her to babyface the crowd right now and be like, yay. And as soon as she turned her back to me, I immediately jumped her to just take control of the entire situation, which is what Rip Rogers taught us at OVW. I started putting a heat on her right away, facing her towards that camera, working all the agents in the crowd. The Bellas were there up and high up. Naomi was there. Dolph Ziggler was there. Sandow was there. Cody was there. The Miz was there. And then on the watching, you know, around by the ring was Dustin Rhodes. He was one of the people in charge of it at that point. William Regal, Scott Armstrong, Joey Mercury. I want to say Billy Kidman, but I'm not quite sure about that one. And then I put her in this basic hold, and I have her start working up. I snap her back down, put her in a variation of that same hold, have her work up a different way, snap her back down a different way after she does a little bit more and a little bit more. And then I tell her, kick out. I pinned her. I told her, kick out right now. She did. And I was like, now the next time that you work out of this, you were going to get desperate and you were going to go. And I get her to start working up, right? Hannibal, working up. I fire her into the corner and I tell her, fire up on me. She had no idea what that meant. And I was like, And I was like, Amy, harder, 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 faster, faster, now. And then she sold my headbutt really poorly, so I didn't do it again. She didn't know any better. I brought her to the ropes and I said, duck 1, duck 2, sunset flip. And by God, she did it. And she pinned me 1, 2, 3. And as soon as I kicked out after the 3, and I was like, get out now. And I tried to like grab her and attack her. And to her credit, she got out. And I actually got a standing ovation from the agents for that. And they put me over as being like the only one that like worked a pretend crowd and a camera. And they're like, you're the only one that didn't put yourself over. And it was clear, they said it was clear that you were leading that and made her look good. And that felt good to me. It was like people that have way more experience than me and way more knowledge worthwhile of learning from said that kind of stuff to me. And that was an experience where I could have just been set up to fail, you know, and I'm sure you can relate. And I was able to turn it around, and I didn't even realize that I could. But like I said earlier, that training, it's always there. You know, once you got it, you got it. And that made me feel like, oh, wow, maybe I didn't waste my life in this business, you know. And not long after that, some people called OVW, asked some questions about me. I guess I got a really good review, and I got a WB tryout.
And how did that tryout go? Was that at the performance center?
Yes, it was, and it was difficult. It was very difficult. I didn't get the Bill DeMott tryout. He had already left at that time, so I had a very different kind of tryout that was ran by Albert Age Train. It was difficult because I had to miss my little sister's high school graduation to be there because they had to change the date of the tryout. It was originally supposed to be in May, and for some unforeseen circumstances, they had to change it to June. So I had to miss that, which was like a very big deal for my family. But you know, it's the nature of the business, unfortunately, and chasing dreams. And I had found out not just a few weeks before that tryout that I had restricted lung disease. I had passed out at the gym and hit my head on like a weight that was on the floor, and I couldn't understand why I passed out. You know, it was like one of the best shapes of my career, so it didn't make sense. That's why I passed out. And then I go to the doctor and all this stuff, and I find out I have restrictive lung disease. And that was a real mental mind screw. It's like, okay, I'm approaching the biggest opportunity, arguably, of my career. And now I find out that, you know, I'm kind of medically impaired. And, you know, I found myself with like this tube with the inhaler, and it makes like a kazoo sound. And so it's like, no way, nobody can not hear it. And, you know, I had to do like this breathing machine at the hospital and stuff like that. And I didn't talk about it for years. Like, I didn't even talk about it at Ring of Honor, nothing, because I didn't want to be treated differently. And I also didn't fully understand what that the lung disease actually was. Like, I didn't fully grasp the severity of the situation until like 2 years ago, when I was like, oh, wow, you know, I feel a lot different. Things that were easy aren't easy anymore. And it's not because I'm getting older. Like, I still feel really young. It's because, you know, you were told something a few years ago and you didn't really take care of it like you should have. I think, you know, when you're young, you don't want to take that time off to do stuff. Like, I'm sure, you know, we've all done it. You know, don't take that time off after that concussion, or you don't let a broken bone heal properly, or that sprain or whatever, or that tweaked muscle, because you want to stay in the game. You don't want to miss opportunities. You want to go. And that's kind of how I approached the whole lung disease thing. And so it's drastically changed everything, like how I wrestle and everything like that. It's changed. But I think for a while I thought it would be like the end of me, but it's not. You know, and that's what I think I'm proud of the most. But that was very difficult to go into that situation with all these amazing wrestlers who were there. And it's the opportunity you've waited like 10 years for, just about. And I'm not telling you anything you haven't felt. You've been there, you know. And you put your absolute everything into it, to the point where you feel like you have absolutely nothing left to give. This is your moment. This is it. And it's just taken away. It just does not go your way. You get that email, and I didn't even have to open the email. It just said no right in the subject header. And I was with my little sister when I got it, so then I felt like I failed her. Yeah, it was a copy and paste email. It didn't even say my name, but that was kind of typical because they were doing a lot of tryouts, and there's always so many people at the tryouts, you know. At my tryout alone, there was more than 30 people. Drew Gulak was signed off of my tryout. So was Ember. Rachel Ellering was at my tryout. Giselle Shaw. I said Jessica Havoc, I think. She was
Yep.
at that tryout. Let me see. Tommaso Ciampa, he was at my tryout. Like, all of us were there, and we all knew each other. Oh, that really awesome Australian tag team, they were signed that day, the last day. I don't know whatever happened to them. But yeah, so like a lot of people, but yeah, it didn't even say my name and stuff, and like it didn't offer any sort of feedback on things, so you could prove on nothing. So it's kind of like one of those mental mind games where you have to decide, like, okay, is this it for me, or do I still have more left to give? And if I do I want to give it? Do I still want to do this? Have my dreams changed? And I think that's what people, I don't know about you, Hannibal, but it makes me sad when I see people come into an industry that I loved with everything, every fiber of my being, and I see people leaving it, hating it. I don't want to be one of those people, and I don't want to see more people leaving it, hating it. Like the little girl that I was that loved it so much, I still want to stay in contact with her. I still want to look in the mirror as if I'm giving her a high five, telling her we're going to do some epic shizit. Like I that's my personality. I never want to lose that childlike enthusiasm for life and everything. And for me, see people like you, when I think back on my own experiences, when I see people that I know personally leave the business hating it, and so for me, after that no, I was like, okay, I've got some work to do. I'm going to revamp myself and reinvent myself and come back even better. And there's going to come a day where you can't say no to me. And then the power will be in my hands, because then I will have the ability to say no. And that's kind of what I've done. People think I've retired from wrestling. I haven't retired. I'm just busy doing all the things I ever wanted to do, because now I'm my own boss. I'm not beholden to a company. If I want to publish my book tomorrow, I can publish it. If I want to be in a movie, I can be in a movie without having to ask permission. I can have whoever I want on my podcast. Like everything I've ever wanted to do since I was a little girl, I can now do, Hannibal, and I don't have to ask permission to be free with my authenticity. And I think that was the biggest thing I learned from every promotion I've ever been in, every company I've ever signed with or been employed by in any way, shape, or form. And I think that there's such a freedom in being free with your authenticity. Like for your channel, that's yours. You did that. You put in that hard work. You built that. You built an audience that wants to watch your stuff. You did that on your own, as your own boss, as your own creator. Like you're going to live and die by your own sword. That to me is amazing. That's what I'm doing now, and I think it's amazing. And I want more people to experience that sort of rush where you eat depending on how much work you put in. The success is based on how much work you put in, how many sleepless nights for your dream. And for me, I know I'm rattling on, but for me, it's just important that I work hard for my own dreams, not somebody else's. I want to be my own boss. And that's what I think I'm liking most about this whole new world.
I'm actually doing very well financially without being in WWE, with full creative control, as you were saying.
And that's what I think. I wish more people would hear you say that, because so many people, I've talked about this with Alpha Female, who's in Germany. I've talked about it with girls in the US and Australia. It's like so many, we all know people that only base their worth on where they get signed. And to me, it's so unfortunate, because I see so many people that are so successful without a label, but they think that they're not, because they base their goal on such specificity. They gave no room for error. It can only be this. That's what makes me successful. And you don't allow any room for variation, but you have to, because like the world isn't according to you. The world will do what the world wants to do, and you have to be able to learn to evolve and kind of evolve with your dream. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do that, and I wish they would, because then they would see there is success, like you were saying, on your own terms, with your own creative freedom, and financially stable. Because there's a lot of people, they aren't financially stable and they don't think that they're successful, but it's like, wait a second, you got to wrestle in Mexico, Canada, all across the US, the UK, India, Africa, Costa Rica. That you don't think you're successful? What? But you did that all on your own, without a label behind you to market you into, like, yeah, it just drives me crazy. I want more people to feel that happiness and success instead of feeling they have to be beholden to a label.
Now, we don't get Ring of Honor on TV here in Canada, to my knowledge, so I'm not that familiar with your Ring of Honor career other than the videos online. There's some great matches I've seen of you over the past 2 weeks, I guess. I started watching your matches. You have one that has like 7 million hits that features a pile driver onto a pile of chairs. That's pretty
Yes.
cool. How was your overall experience in that company? I know you had some ups and downs, but there seems to have been a lot of highs.
More lows than highs, actually, but a lot of people just don't know about it. The thing that I think most is that people's illusions are fragile. Hannibal is what I've learned since 2018. They're people's illusions are very fragile, and they need you to kind of be the villain in their story because it's their story. And their illusions, they can't afford to have them shattered or destroyed. They're not ready to swallow that bitter truth pill. So it's easier for them to make a narrative to make you into something you're not. And in order to be successful and to be your own version of success and happy, not just in this business, but I think in life in general, as far as my opinion goes and my experiences, in order to do that, you have to not care. You have to just not care, because if they need you to be the villain, then that's fine. You be the villain. It's their story, not yours. It doesn't have to be your reality. It's their pain. It's their own insecurities. It doesn't have to amplify your own. And that's kind of what I've learned is, I posted on social media, in prosperity, our friends know us, man. But in adversity,
Yeah,
we really find out how few friends
especially
we
in this
actually truly
business.
have. Yes, and that's what I try to explain to a lot of people going in. It's like, make no mistake, people aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to their need of you. And once that need changes, so too does their loyalty. And don't for one second think that if they were asked who would be great for this opportunity and it came down to you or them, they're going to pick them, even if they know that you would be better. And that's just how it is, unfortunately. And that's good and it's bad. But you have to be realistic about it, I think. And that's kind of what the whole Ring of Honor experience and the TNA experience and the WWE experience and just wrestling in general taught me. And I think it's a very valuable lesson. I mean, what would you say? I think that you've had a lot of experiences that taught you a lot of similar lessons.
Yes, similar to what you're saying. There's few people in wrestling that you can really trust because it's really a business about yourself, right? And there's politics.
And like you said, it's a business based around yourself. And I think people forget that it's also a team effort. For people that are afraid to be labeled difficult to deal with, maybe look at it a different way. You're not difficult to deal with, you're just hard to F over. Very simple. People in Hollywood know it, people in corporate know it, people in wrestling should know it too. And doing the right thing is just always the right thing to do, regardless of whether or not it's trending or popular. It kills me when people only do something or say something because it's trending or popular. Do it because it's the right thing to do and you believe in it. And just be good people and the business will be better. You don't have to stoop to the level just because you think that's what wrestling is. It doesn't need to be that way. Wrestling used to be and should have been inclusive from the get. However you self-identify, whatever your religious or political affiliations are, it's entertainment. It's a sport. It's a show. It's supposed to entertain people, not make people depressed or kill people. And I think that that's one of the biggest things I took out of it is, it's not how you think of it as a kid when you're watching on TV with rose-colored goggles because you don't know how the world works. So when you come into it as an adult, kind of realize that. And I think a lot of wrestlers would be more happy because they don't have that pressure of when they were a little kid and they didn't know how the world worked. You can still make yourself proud and be the adult you needed as a child without having to sacrifice your integrity.
Now, of course, I'm not a female and I'm a promoter. I've used Jay Lethal a couple of times in Great North Wrestling about 9 years ago. My experiences were good with him. Obviously, there's something going on with you guys, I guess. the fans wanted me to ask you about. Has it been resolved, or is it still kind of a dispute that's ongoing?
No, it's not resolved, and I'm glad you didn't have bad experiences. I don't wish bad experiences on anybody. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand because they listen to everybody else's narratives. I'm not the only one that has issues. If you start following the breadcrumbs that are out there of evidence and of proof, you'll realize, I came forward in 2018 before this was trending, before it was popular. It was hard. I got so much hate. I got so much backstabbing and so much of everything. But I wasn't the only one that came forward. Two other people came forward anonymously. I don't know if they've, weathered the storm, so to speak, that comes with it. In 2019, a guy comes forward. 2020, another girl comes forward. It's like, how many people will have to come forward before they realize there's a problem? And the findings have never been released. So ask yourselves why this is. So we're what, over 2 years now? Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why an investigation that was released over 40 days ago, there's still nothing being said. There's a lot of proof that's out there, and I provided a lot of it in 2016 privately and 2017 privately, which a lot of people don't know. And then I came forward publicly in 2018. People don't realize those things because they're private, and they were kept private. So when people say that they were unaware, it's a lie. You were aware. I have documents saying that you were aware, that have your logo on it, your label on it. So people have been aware for a very long time that there are bad things going on in wrestling. And the speaking out movement made me happy. And it was sad to see similar stories. Like when you read so many of those stories, I hope the fans do and don't at the same time, because it'll make the fans depressed too. And we saw that. There was people that left social media, not because of hate, but because it was just so overwhelming for them. And that's how it feels to people that have to go through it every single day. And the only thing you can do is just tell the truth and try to be the solution instead of the problem, and to do the right thing. Just do the right thing. Lying doesn't help anybody. And you don't get good attention from this kind of stuff, people. You don't. You get death threats. You get stabbed in the back by men and women. Like it's not I am woman, hear me roar, and down with all men. No, I love men's wrestling. I love wrestling. I went back after I started wrestling to watch all the wrestling I missed from like the 70s and the 80s, the territory days. All that stuff. I love wrestling. I want to see it grow and succeed. I want to see the numbers come back. During coronavirus, the numbers shouldn't be going down in ratings. They should be going up in viewerships. People don't have stuff to do. I want to see the business thrive. But I also don't want to see people getting taken advantage of. And I don't want to see any more nepotism. And I don't want to see any more bad things. And all you can do is tell the truth. And that's what I did. And like I said earlier, people are going to paint their narratives of you, and you can't change their minds, because at the end of the day, the only way you'll change somebody's mind is if they already wanted it to be changed. People will think whatever it is they want. And what people need to understand is, for example, Hannibal, think back throughout your whole career. Have you ever met somebody that you looked up to and they were just a complete jerk to you?
Yes.
Now, were they talented in the ring? Because you looked up to them, so they must have been talented, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so let me add an additional follow-up question. When they were a jerk to you, did that change the fact that they were a talented performer?
No.
And that's my point. Having talent doesn't make you a good person. They're not mutually exclusive, and that's what I want people to understand is it's not about money. It's not about getting a job back. I quit myself. The dirt sheets that are friends with people, wink, tried to say that I was fired. I just said I was fired. I never said that. I have the proof that I wasn't fired. I quit, and that's just another very good example of people need to paint other people a certain way because, like I said, their illusions are so shattered. But whenever I do conventions, for example, Hannibal, I always ask people, so how long have you been wrestling? Have you met some of your favorite wrestlers? How did you enjoy the show? Like WrestleCon, for example, I loved WrestleCon. I get to meet people from all over the world and all kinds of stuff. And it would always break my heart if they would share with me like a negative experience. Like they're like, one person, they were from, they were from somewhere in China. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I just remember they were from China. And they said that they waited over 2 hours to meet this wrestler. And the wrestler didn't even look them in the face. They just like took the money, wrote something, and then tossed it down the table to the next person in line. It was like a gauntlet style table, and you had to wait and stuff. And that person had come all the way from China to meet that person, watch them for years. And that broke my heart. You know, I think we've all been there, but that's a
I've
conscious
had that
choice.
experience
Everybody
with
has their best.
as I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I did. And years later, I ended up being on shows with that person. So it kind of all comes full circle. All you have to do is be a good person. That's all I want is for people. I want people to succeed and to fulfill their dreams. I don't want people to have to go through bad stuff. I don't want to wish bad experience on people. Just tell the truth and great thing and know that you'll be okay. You know, bullying doesn't need to happen. Being a jerk doesn't need to happen, and all these other bad things don't need to happen. But also too is if you don't want to believe it, okay, I can't change your mind, but at least look at the proof. Like look at how many people are coming forward. Eventually, when you see enough smoke, you're gonna know that there's fire for a reason. And I mean, this isn't unheard of. And at this point, what more is there that can be said, you know? So I'm glad that you didn't have bad experiences, but I unfortunately can't say the same. I love wrestling and I want it to be a better place because I didn't come into it because I hated it. You didn't come into it because you hate it. Oh, I hate wrestling, so I'm going to be a wrestler. Like nobody says that. Nobody watches wrestling because they hate it. Nobody gets into it because they hate it. I don't want to leave it hating it, and I don't want other people to leave it hating it. I want it to be fun like it used to be. I want it to be awe-inspiring and cool again. Like D'Lo Brown said, he said after coronavirus, come 2021, he said, I want to make wrestling something people want to watch again. And I love that. I agreed with that. You know, when he said that on my podcast, I was like, that right there, that.
Well, I don't know if I have faith in him, but good luck to him. But I was going to ask you, there's been some people coming out about the Ring of Honor pay for women too. I know PCO told me he makes in the six figures there, and there are some higher paid wrestlers in Ring of Honor, but can you like work just in Ring of Honor as a female at the lower levels and not have to have another job, or is it like enough money to survive on?
No, it's not. When I was there, I think there was only one girl that had a contract, and that was, I think, specifically because she was in a storyline with a guy who's now in WWE. And so they needed to make sure that she could be there for all of the dates that he had because he was signed. And that's all I know at that time. Like, they didn't openly talk about the pay, but I do know that, for example, when Michael Elgin left, and I think he may or may not have gone to New Japan. I
think he
I'm
went to
not
go
positive.
exclusive for New Japan for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that freed up a lot of Ring of Honor money, and girls didn't get contracts from that. It went to other things like pay raises for some of the other guys and stuff. So I think a lot of the girls were getting paid roughly the same amount as I was. And then pre-tape days aren't the same pay, it's different. So yeah, it's not enough to necessarily live off of. So that's why you would see a lot of other girls on the indies and shoot jobs and things like that. Yeah, but that's not uncommon. I'm sad to say that it's not exclusively to ROH like that. It's pretty common in a lot of places, but you would think that at a place that has, six-figure contracts and stuff, that it wouldn't be the case. But it is, but it's also not mutually exclusive to that company. It's pretty common.
Now, Tessa Blanchard's a pretty controversial figure these days. You've worked with her. How were your experiences?
Um, Gosh, when was the last time I worked with Tessa? I haven't hit in the head so many
You were in a
times.
three-way match with her, I believe. I think I
Yeah,
saw a clip of that.
that was at a WrestleCon. It was myself versus Jessica Havoc versus Tessa Blanchard for the Queens of Combat title. That was a lot of fun and very easy. I never really had like issues with Tessa Blanchard. Just like miscommunications in the ring, but that's not uncommon with anybody. I wasn't in Japan when stuff supposedly went down with her, so I don't know. I have not yet wrestled in Japan. But I know that other people have had experience with her, including my former tag partner, Chelsea Green. So we were Queens of Combat tag team champions together. I wrestled her to win the Queens of Combat title. I remember that. That was interesting. We couldn't call a whole lot. And then she kept kicking out of all my stuff. And then it was at one point I was like, please don't kick out of this. I ran out of moves. In the ring, even though like my lung disease has progressed, I'm always cracking jokes in there. Like there's a girl who's from the Philippines that I wrestled in January of this year before the whole COVID-19 really came forth. And she went on a podcast talking about me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the sweetest girl on the planet. It's so funny. She was talking about how like a light just like switches, because she said I look like I'm gonna kill her in the ring and stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm like talking to her, I'm like, hey, how you doing, sweetie? You doing good? And I just laughed the way she talked about it. She is very talented. She's definitely going to be somebody to watch in the future. Her name is Nina, and she wrestles in the Philippines. I think she's going to be somebody someday. I think she's got that it quality. Like you can't define it, but know it when you see it. I think that's her.
For Tessa, do you think she'll end up in WWE? Because no matter what her attitude are, she still is the undefeated Impact champion, which has some value. I mean, she beat most of the guys on the roster. She is hated as well, so she could be a good heel there.
I think it can go either way. Like, wrestling business is very funny that way. I wouldn't be surprised if she went to either AEW or WWE at some point. Like, wrestling is always a waiting game. The companies are always waiting for stuff to die down or waiting for fans to forget. So I think it's just a waiting game for Tessa, as well as, for coronavirus because of the border and everything. Because I think she's in Mexico.
Yeah.
And a lot of places are shutting off to the U.S. until the numbers start coming down. But yeah, I think it's just a waiting game. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the other promotions pick her up, honestly. And if not, I mean, AAA in Mexico, some of the women do amazingly well for themselves. Like Lady Shani, I'm a huge fan of hers. I love watching her work, her and Fabi Apache. But I think it's also a waiting game, and that's just how the business works. Whether somebody's hated for the right reasons or hated for the wrong reasons, it's always a waiting game. And then once something dies down, a company will weigh the risk and then make a choice.
Yeah, let's hope Mexico wrestling can start back up again. But from what I understand, it's not looking good for this year because the medical system's not that good there. There's been a lot of wrestlers who've actually died, and the commissions probably aren't going to allow wrestling to open back up there.
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh.
More wrestlers have died in Mexico than any other country. I don't think there has been any wrestler that have actually died from COVID in any other country, but it's unfortunate.
That makes me sad. That's really, yeah, it's just not a good time, it really isn't. And these shows that are going live on TV, I know that there's protocols in place, but it still makes me very nervous for their health as well as the health of their families as well when they try to go home. Like I myself can't wrestle right now because of my lung disease. I'm too at risk. So I think about that, and then I think about all of the wrestlers that are on TV right now and the protocols that I hope that's being done, so that way they have the peace of mind of knowing that they're not going to bring something home and potentially jeopardize their families.
Now, I understand you mentioned earlier that you knew Sasha Banks a little bit. I recently heard her on Steve Austin's podcast. She seems like a pretty nice person, also from the Boston area. How did you get along with her?
I didn't really have any issues with Sasha Banks at all. I wrestled her maybe like 4 times total. I did 2 promo camps with her. I used to help her with promos way back in the day. I used to have a notebook and we would like look at like quotes and stuff and whatnot. Because I was always taught to like if something sounds cool, write it down. You might be able to use it later. That like sort of carny stuff. And that's crazy because look at we were just like two girls. We weren't like best friends or anything, but we were two girls that had big dreams and we were able to do them in our own way. And to see what she gets to do now, it's pretty amazing. You have to really respect that hard work because that doesn't just happen by accident. That's a lot of hard work and dedication, and you know it. So to see like her growth and everything that she's been able to accomplish, and a lot of the doors that she's been able to open for other people, I think that's really cool because I don't think anybody would have expected it from either of us in our ways. We were the new girls, and she started like 3 years or 2 years after me, and she had good training like right off the bat, whereas I really didn't. And I think that really helped elevate, and she got like a lot of really good experience from the get. And I think that's a good testament for people that if they want to get in the business, don't just go to a school because it's local. Pick a school and a trainer that has a track record of doing what you want to achieve. So if they help train so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, and they're all in WWE and former champions, that's probably a good school to bet on. But don't go somewhere just because it's local and pay some random person $3,000. It's anybody can pretend to teach you how to wrestle, but some of those people you might be better off just going on YouTube instead.
Yeah.
And she had like good stuff right off the bat, and you can just tell she wanted it, and she did.
What are your future goals for wrestling? Obviously, as you said, there's not much you can do right now, unfortunately, with the coronavirus, but hopefully a vaccine will come out soon. And once things get going again, what are your goals? You're still pretty young.
Yeah, I feel really good. I'm just focused on doing whatever I want and whatever I can. Like I'll wrestle anywhere that I want to wrestle as long as I think it's worth my while and it's a good, fun environment. I'm not doing anything for the money anymore. Like a lot of us, we have to get this booking and this booking and this booking because it makes the loop worth it. So we make money instead of losing money. And, oh, we need this booking to get traction and get notoriety. I don't need to worry about that stuff anymore. Now I'm wrestling because I want to and because I love it. And now I have more freedom to pick and choose what and where I want to go. And I've had opportunities to do stuff this year. I just can't, for obvious reasons. So I'm publishing my books, which I always wanted to do, that I started working on in high school. I started a podcast. I'm working on my YouTube channel. I'm on social media, interacting with my fans pretty much every day. I have a lot of stuff I want to accomplish. So while wrestling's on the back burner for the foreseeable future, I'm still working.
And you're on Vince Russo's podcasting network, I believe. How's your relationship with him?
I learn a lot from Vince Russo. He's been very supportive of my work. Like I sent him stuff. I used to send stuff to people all the time to get feedback, like Les Thatcher or Kevin Kelly. I've sent stuff to Vince Russo before I was officially on his channel. And I like to learn from people that have done things that, I can learn from, and that was something like he really gravitated towards like the creativity I put into stuff. And that was one of the ups I would say about Ring of Honor is I didn't like the position I was in. So I decided to make myself and elevate myself if other people weren't going to do that for me. And that's when fans didn't know, but fans were starting to get to see like my creative work and my vision of wrestling. Like a lot of people, you mentioned that 7 million view match. I'm assuming that's my match with Mandy Leon, the no DQ.
Yeah.
To that, all of that like psychotic and candle work and the changing of my makeup and and some of the way I would do the same moves, but I would try to approach them a little differently and stuff. All of that was like my creativity and trying to shift myself and develop myself and do my own storyline, since I wasn't necessarily getting written for. And I also wrote my own promos and executed those myself, which aired leading up to the no DQ match. I think if it wasn't for those matches, those vignettes that I had done, I probably would have lost that no DQ match. Because I didn't find out I was going to win until after I submitted those promos. The only directions was, hey, Taylor, can you cut a couple promos to lead up to the no DQ match? I didn't have any instructions. I wasn't going to get a budget or anything like that. I just was like, you know what? This is like go big or go home time. Like, if nobody's going to write for me and put me in a position to be a star, then I'm going to have to do that myself. And I think it works. So more wrestlers should pick up on that and do that, because you guys won't regret it. They won't. And I love it. That was when fans finally got to see me, the Taeler Hendrix, like the behind the scenes writer and the creator. Like, I've helped people design their gimmicks, design their gear. I've written promos for people and stuff like that. But like, this is where fans actually got to see me do it for myself and what potential I could have. And that was really exciting for me. And now I get to do even more of that on my own terms. And Vince Russo was always very supportive of that. He's like, this is some like really cool stuff. Like, that's like unique. And I was like, yeah, I know it. And it was just really awesome to get that sort of validation and appreciation for the subtle little details. And, I helped put together, I didn't put the whole thing together, but I helped put together the no DQ match and the 4-way women's ladder match at OVW and stuff like that. So I think that it's really cool to look back and think, oh, wow, there's like part of me in that. Like, I did that. So that was part of the ups of Ring of Honor. And Vince Russo was like very supportive of that and gave me like really good critiques that really like changed, like the subtle little devil in the details, and it made a really big difference.
Is there any female wrestlers out there that you want to wrestle before your career is over?
Oh, a ton. I would love to wrestle with, in no certain order, I would love to have like a rematch with Lisa Marie Varon, Tara. I'm really kicking myself in the butt. I had a chance to wrestle in the Knockouts Lockdown in 2017, but I chose to do Ring of Honor instead. And that was also the same day that I could have wrestled Taya Valkyrie at a different promotion, and I regret that. So I definitely would love to wrestle with Taya Valkyrie, especially with like her Valhalla gimmick. I just loved that. It was very different and creative. I think we would have a lot of fun. Let me see. I would love to wrestle Shotzi Blackheart. I was supposed to wrestle her in California, but then fires broke out and stuff, so the show had to be postponed. We never got to do it. I think I would love to have a tag match with like Beth Phoenix and Natty versus myself and somebody else. I think that would be a lot of fun. I love their work, especially as a tag team together. I think that they're awesome. Io Shirai, I would love to have a match with her. Asuka, I think her and I would have a lot of fun with our different like backgrounds and styles. I think that would be a lot of fun. Penelope Ford, I think, is really showing and elevating herself and full of promise. And I think she had arguably one of the best matches of her career at Fyter Fest. So I think that would be a lot of fun. There's a lot of girls, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I think I could rattle on too many.
And is there any company that you'd like to be in, whether it's, I guess NXT is probably your goal, I would assume?
I just want to have fun. I don't have like a specific destination in mind. And I think that that's something that maybe my fans like, is there was an ongoing joke for a while that I was here, I was there, I was there, I was here, I was here, I was there. So you never know where I'm going to pop up. But I actually just like being, so if I go to East Independence, awesome, as long as it's on my terms and I can control it.
My dog wanted to come and say hi to you.
Oh, no, is that Piper?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I love animals. I volunteer with animals. I've always had rescue animals. I love that. Hello. I wish Slinky was here now. Slinky's outside playing. That's not fair.
You have quite a garden in your backyard. I'm surprised, like with your gimmick, that you're such a flowery lady with pretty impressive garden. And I heard you say you buy flowers every week or something.
Oh, I like to grow a lot of my own stuff. So I think it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm a weird person, I guess. Like I live in a tiny house on wheels, but I have a place to park, and I have these giant, like 8-foot sunflowers, and I pick my own flowers to put in my own house, and I grow like corn and carrots and lettuce and things like that. And I read and I write books, and I have like a couple little chickens. So
Oh,
I actually, Liv Morgan and I both have like little chicks and stuff like that. So I'm a Jill of all trades, I'm telling you. There's always a surprise with Taeler Hendrix.
and where exactly do you live now? The West Coast, I guess.
Ooh, I am all over the place. With coronavirus, it's obviously a little bit different, but I like being all over the place. I've always wanted to like move around. That was something I always loved about wrestling, is getting to go here, there, and everywhere. So, and the freedom of not having all the bills of a regular house makes that a lot easier when you have a tiny house.
That's pretty cool. So I'll ask you to finish off that other scary story before we go here that you said you were going to save for
Oh,
later.
okay. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you remember that. Yeah, I hope I wasn't too like, I was really excited to be on your show, so I have like so much energy right now. I apologize.
Oh no, I'm very interested in that type of thing.
Oh my God, then you should definitely go visit that house. Salem, especially. Salem is probably one of my favorite places on the planet. Anyways, I remember telling you that when you first walk into the house, right to the right, you go up the stairs like this, like this, like this, and then you reach the top landing. There's a really long hallway. At the end is the master bedroom. Facing, as soon as you get up to the landing, is this big bedroom, and then you turn right, and then you turn into this room. Is the room that I mentioned with the 4 babies in the walk-in closet, and that's where the story takes place. So my sister was not born yet. So the bedroom that faced the landing was just like this little playroom. I was the bedroom where you have to turn the corner into the hallway and then go in. My bed is up against the wall, and then across my bed on the other side of the room is a walk-in closet. Well, my mom became very much like an insomniac because she would be the only parent at home. My stepfather would work third shift. So she would be kind of alert, you know, any parents listening to this, they'll understand. um, she can vividly remember this deep sleep. She was like, I couldn't believe it. It was so rare. And they're supposed to say, they say that it's very hard for you to be awoken out of a deep sleep. Usually it just happens naturally. Well, my mother remembers this one night in particular. I'm probably about 5 years old at this point. It's not long after my grandmother has passed away. And something wakes my mother out of this deep sleep. And she said she had this feeling of anxiety and alarm, and she could smell something burning. So she was like, crap. She looks throughout her whole room, comes, looks in my room, looks in the playroom, goes down, checks the whole first floor, then goes down the next flight of stairs, checks this room that's like a converted chicken coop, and it was converted into its own bedroom. And then down into the cellar, she checks the boiler, so old house. Nothing. Goes back upstairs, goes back to sleep. Well, she remembers like something awoke her again. And she's like, what is this? And what is that smell? So again, her room, the playroom, goes down first floor, goes down into the spare room. She goes back upstairs. She goes to sleep. Several hours goes by, she says, and then she wakes up and she says, this time, she's like, something is wrong. Like she like woke up from like a deep like sleep, and she's like covered in sweat, and she had like this instant reaction, like she needed to grab me and run. That was like how she described it. She was like, grab your kid and run, is what she had said. She ran to my room. There's nothing, no animals, nothing. She checks the playroom, goes down, checks the first floor, goes again into the spare room, checks the boiler, and double checks the boiler. Still nothing. She's frustrated. She smells something burning now. And this is the last time. This time is when she still smells it burning on the way back. The other 2 times she didn't. She's like, okay, like this is real. Something is really wrong. So she goes back, there's still nothing. So she goes back up the stairs, she goes back up the other stairs, and she's starting to walk by my room, and something tells her that she needs to stop and check my room again, which is not a feeling she had the first 2 times. She walks into my room, and my lamp is tipped over on the floor. The lampshade is across my room, so it had to fly over and across my bed to land near the closet, the lampshade. And the light bulb is by itself burning a hole into my floor. And growing up, it had the shape of the light bulb, and you could go like this and soot would be on your finger. And there was no crashing sound. There was no animals. We had 2 dogs and like 4 cats. There was no animals running from the room. There was nothing to conceivably explain how my lamp, which was very, very heavy, it was a ceramic base and it had like a carousel, and it was hand painted by my mother. It was on there. There was no physical way that this lamp could knock itself over with how heavy it was, land without being shattered. It's a ceramic base, not a single bit of ceramic anywhere. And the lampshade landed feet across the room, across my bed in front of the closet. So literally, here's my bed. It had to go over and across. Nothing woke me up as a child. There was no crashing sound, nothing. And she smelled the burning on the floor. Like, wow. That's insane. And growing up, I lived with that story and the remnants and reminder of it every single day, because I could see the charcoal bit in the floor that in the shape of the light bulb. Insane. That's scary as hell. And I remember she was just like, she didn't call my grandma mom, she called her grandma. And she was just like, okay, grandma, thank you. And like, she like thanked my grandma, like, 'cause she just thought like, we don't know what did that, but we had to think that, you know, maybe it was my grandma trying to warn my mom. That's the only thing my mom could really think of, because like, what would explain her going into a deep sleep when she was like a high functioning insomniac at that point, from, you know, being the only parent at home at night to all of a sudden experiencing this deep sleep and, you know, smelling something that didn't happen yet twice in a row before it actually happened. There was no other way to explain it other than she thought it was my grandma, because my grandma had died like a little beforehand. It was just, that's really crazy. So growing up in that room, and then my sister had heard the story when that became my sister's room. And as far as I know, the people that bought the house, it was already remodeled, but the floors were never touched. So as far as I know, that charcoal bit is still there to this day.
Wow. Well, people keep asking me to do more ghost-related videos, so maybe you'll take us on a tour of Salem one day once the border opens.
That would be absolutely awesome. There are so many really awesome things there. I grew up going to Salem every year around Halloween time. It's so beautiful in the fall. But yeah, New England has some of like the craziest haunted houses, man. It's real. Like that story right there still gives me goosebumps to this day, because I feel like if I walked in that house, that was one of the first things I would want to see, is that little charcoal bit in the floor upstairs. And nobody will know where it was from. But I know.
Now, I know you're a horror movie buff. Is there any favorite scary movies that you have? I saw an interview where you said you were excited for It Too, but in my opinion, that one wasn't too great. But
The Sixth Sense scared the living daylights out of me as a child, guys, because I grew up, like I was saying, and we just discussed, in a haunted house. So that one with the girl throwing up under the bed, my goodness, I had these 1970s hand-me-down really tall bunk beds. So I swear to goodness that like a village of ghosts lived under that bunk bed, because it was terrifying. Whenever you would have to like go to the bathroom or go down to like get something at night, and your feet would have to go down the ladder and you can't see anything, it was like, what's gonna grab my feet? What's gonna grab my feet? So I definitely have to say The Sixth Sense is really up there. I liked Sinister a lot. I like some of like the midnight movies, horror movies, like Eraserheads, all kinds of like stuff like that. I used to love like the really gory stuff, but as a little kid, the bowling alley I used to go to all the time played Freddy Krueger. So I was obsessed with Freddy Krueger as a little kid, and I was obsessed with Halloween. They used to play that on all the haunted house attractions back home, so I was very familiar with all of that stuff. Oh my goodness. I liked the original It a lot. I grew up with a lot of the Stephen King stuff like Salem's Lot, Pet Cemetery. So it was kind of really cool to see the newer renditions of it. Um, oh my gosh, there's so many. Like if I probably went down like a list, if you got brought up a list on the internet, I could be like, seen it, loved it, seen it, hated it, loved it.
Which is your favorite of the Halloweens?
Ooh. This is a really controversial opinion, but why not? I really loved the first Halloween that Rob Zombie did, his take on it. I thought that was really cool. I thought he did an excellent job with that. I grew up in a house where everybody hated remakes. So I always try to give them a chance, just the benefit of the doubt. And that one, I definitely have to say I loved. I also loved the original one with Jamie Lee Curtis. And I also loved her remake. I thought that was really well done. I felt like the continuity was really good. So I would definitely have to say those. One movie that my mom allowed me to watch at a sleepover that I think she immediately regretted allowing me to watch was Phantasm. Have you seen that?
I have not.
Oh
Maybe I'll
man,
have to look.
that's like a throwback. I think it was the 70s or the 80s that I think it was made. And I don't know why that scared the living daylights out of me and my friends, or my friends and I, whatever, when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And my mom like instantly regretted allowing me to watch it.
That's funny.
Oof, that one hits home pretty deep. Phantasm. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
there's so many.
sounds like you have good tastes. And I know you said you were a fan of Elvira too. You kind of look like her.
Yes, Cassandra Patterson, and that was actually my great grandmother's last name. So I like to joke that like I'm her long lost daughter or something. She was a very big inspiration for part of my Ring of Honor persona that I started to portray, and I was like really excited about it. When I was at OVW, I was taught to take small things from pop culture and from other like wrestling entities and morph it into something of your own. And so I definitely took a lot of like Morticia Adams, Elvira, Vampira. You can kind of see a theme. Jessica Rabbit, Madam Hydra, Celine from Underworld, Maleficent, Jade from Mortal Kombat, the Dark Phoenix and the Phoenix, and for a little bit Starfire, and a couple other things, and I morphed them all into like what my vision of Taeler Hendrix should be. And what's really cool that people don't realize is, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to say this indirectly, is that whole idea was a positive that came out of a very negative bullying situation that I had experienced before getting into Ring of Honor. So when I got to Ring of Honor, and I realized I kind of had to fend for myself, so to speak, that's when I drew upon those experiences and kind of brought that vision to life. And it was all, and I had that vision because at one point I was being bullied at a convention, and it kind of gave me these ideas, and then I was able to kind of bring those to fruition. So I think that, for anybody listening or watching this, like if you're being bullied, there's a way you can come out of it better than how you went into it, and you will be a better person for it, and there'll be a silver lining, I promise you.
And what are your thoughts on UFOs? We cover this topic on this channel as well. Apparently, the government's supposed to announce soon that they've found some debris from off-world vehicles, not of this Earth. So that was all in the news last week. But what's your opinion?
Oh, I did not know about this. I don't watch a lot of regular TV. Oh, wow. Okay, so my first instinct is, wow. I mean, I believe it. It scares the living daylights out of me. I feel like this will probably turn into Independence Day, but I think that's really cool. I mean, it's going to be touch and go. I don't know if it's going to be close encounters or if it's going to be, full out war. But I think that's very interesting. I feel that it's obviously possible. I'm not against it. I don't disbelieve it. And it makes sense. But it's also terrifying. Like, I would rather just like live deep in the ocean and take my chance with sharks as opposed to fighting aliens.
Yeah. That's not likely a war we could win if they can come here. And supposedly the government's already released 3 pieces of footage. I don't know if you've seen it, of 3 unidentified aerial phenomenon, they call them, which are like objects that display technology beyond our means. So it's either like China or Russia are spying on us with this crazy technology, or it's something from another planet. So we'll see.
I don't know. I know people that are so fascinated with space, but space just scares me with its vast emptiness. And I'm more like, ooh, let me discover the depths of the ocean instead. I don't know. Like, I've always wanted to go into like a shark tank and do one of those
Yes.
like shark cage things. Like, that's on my bucket list. I know people think that's stupid, but I don't know. I'm crazy, I guess. Haven't you heard? But I wouldn't be surprised if that was Russia or China or actual UFOs. I think it's 2020. Anything's possible at this point. I think like now that we're heading into August, we're at like level 8 of Jumanji. So
Yeah.
anything is possible.
Yeah. Either way, it might not be good that we have these things in our atmosphere and there's nothing we could really do about it, apparently. So,
If we can't get each other to wear masks, I don't think we're going to do very well with battling out of this world beings.
no, and that's the other thing too. Everyone says, oh, the public's ready for that knowledge, but people have gone nuts just over coronavirus. And I don't think that's as bad as out of this world beings. But
I mean, at this point, it would not surprise me. I mean, it's August. It'll be August soon. Bring on aliens, I guess, because I mean, why not? We've had, I guess there was like some sort of Ebola outbreak. We had these killer hornet bee things. We've had, coronavirus. We had another breakout of swine flu. We've had just so much stuff. I remember at the ball dropping of 2019 and everybody being like, "This is our year." Yeah, you guys remember that?
yeah, this has been like I've had success this year, but it's been like a depressing year still because you see everyone going against each other. Like people are very opinionated and there's so much fighting, and then parts of our freedom have been taken away. I had like over 100 days out of the gym, which sucked. I'm sure. How have your workouts been, by the way? That was a fan question. How have your workouts changed?
Oh, yay. I love fun fan questions. So if there's any like fun ones, yeah, let's do it. I'm not about hate. Like, I'm a very like peace, joy, happiness, rock on sort of person. And for me, coronavirus honestly hasn't changed all that much for me, other than the fact that like I'm more at risk than the average person that doesn't have like immune compromisation or whatever you want to call it. So for example, I can't like go out shopping. I can not really do my own groceries, so I order a lot of that online or I take very short trips. And it's very hard for me to breathe in my mask. It's very, very difficult. Actually, yeah, that's probably like the really weird part is like just like knowing I need to wear it, but it's so hard for me to breathe. Like I can't get enough air in it. And then for me, I work out at home, so I have like an exercise bike and my own weights and stuff like that. So that didn't really change at all for me. So just the wrestling and the shopping for my own groceries were the 2 biggest differences. And then obviously later this year, like I haven't been able to see family. So I think those are the 3 biggest changes brought on by this whole COVID-19 situation. So I'm hoping that more people take less basic blessings for granted, like, your heart's still beating, if you have a roof over your head, food to eat, clean water to drink, clothes to wear, and people that love you, you might be doing okay, because not everybody can boast those blessings. And for me, I kind of just remind myself of all my friends that aren't here today, who didn't make it to 2020. Now I know that 2020 isn't necessarily a year you want to be like, yeah, let's get to it. Yay, 2020, let's go visit that year in time travel. I understand that's not the circumstance, but it would still be nice if those friends were able to experience this, even if it's, not the best year. So I kind of remind myself of that and consider myself very lucky that I still get to do most of what I love to do. I'm still healthy, knock on everything, and that I haven't had too much change. And I hope that, this whole COVID-19 really exposes more of the flaws in our systems as human beings, and we can kind of make the education system better, the stuff for teachers better, and the health system better, and stuff like that. I think that showed a lot of flaws in the whole system as a whole.
And there was another fan question asking what your diet's like. Obviously, you have a great physique. Are you strict with your diet, or are you blessed?
That is so nice to hear. Normally I hear just like people like body shaming.
Do you?
So thank you. Oh
really?
My God, I've experienced body shaming my entire career. Yeah, I've been bullied my whole entire life, but getting in wrestling is when I experienced the most body shaming I've ever experienced in my entire life. It's insane. I remember the first critique I ever saw of myself. I'll never forget this till the day I die. I was like 3 years in the business, and somebody wrote, she's not even as good looking as the ratty daughter that works at her father's corner store selling cigarettes. And then I remember somebody was like, oh, she has a horse face, a bad gum to tooth ratio like Gina Davis.
They're just
and then another person, oh, right. And then another person was like, oh, she's so ugly, she shouldn't wear red lipstick because she looks like the Joker when she smiles. So I didn't wear red lipstick for like 5 years after that. Then you have people that are like, oh, you're so skinny.
I was going to say you have a wonderful smile. I just didn't want to seem like I was sucking up to you. But for someone to say there's something wrong with you, that's ridiculous.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate it. You kind of just have to, like, it took me my entire time on this entire planet, and I have no problem admitting that, too. Just kind of, it's everybody's opinion. They're allowed to have it, but it doesn't mean it needs to be said. And I think if more people kind of took that perspective, I think the world would be a better place, because you're entitled to your opinion. But the opinion that you have doesn't mean that just because you're entitled to have it doesn't mean that somebody else is entitled to hear it. Some things, like, once you say them, they can't be unsaid. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people might still be here today if more people thought that way.
But as that person was asking, is there any special diet you keep to, like, in my opinion, you look amazing. So
yeah. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I was rambling. I totally forgot. I actually have, like, I don't believe in extremism of any kind, everybody. I think that ruins everything for everybody. So I don't like super crazy strict diets, because it's not practical long term. Like, when you're 75, are you going to be sticking to that strict diet that you forced your body to be so used to? Probably not. So I like my cheats just as much in my diet as everybody else. But I also don't like go crazy. Like, I've learned to not eat my feelings. I think that was like a really big thing. And I've also learned to listen to my body. Lung disease has definitely changed parts of my diet, especially because I have to approach cardio differently and things like that. But for myself, I don't like a lot of the taste of different vegetables, but I drink them. I mask them with fruits that I also don't like to eat. So that's like a very big part of my diet. So I have a NutriBullet because it's small. It fits in my tiny house. It's great. I make a lot of really nice smoothies. They taste good. They don't taste like grass. And I love seafood. I grew up with a big Portuguese background. And so I like a lot of different like fish in my diet, which makes it very healthy and very lower calorie. And then, I like salads and chicken, and I like to cook. It's eventually my goal to do some cooking tutorials and stuff like that. And I just like having fun with food. I don't like approaching food with such discipline that I have to feel guilty if I have a bite. Even when I was in TNA and I had an 8-pack of abs, guess what? I still had 6 Oreos at night. That was like my treat. But that diet wasn't sustainable long term, as I found out when my needs for my body changed. So I think that that's the biggest thing for the person that asked this question, is knowing what you need and not feeling guilty for providing yourself what you need, but have everything in moderation. And definitely fruits and vegetables and lean meats are the biggest parts of my diet. But it doesn't mean I don't enjoy a cheeseburger.
And for the fans that want to follow you, where can they look you up? I know you got your Taeler Hendrix YouTube channel and Twitter and so forth.
I will apologize up front, everybody. Everything on mine is different only because there were fake me's on the platforms before the real me was on them. I'm not very hip. So on Twitter, you can find me with @Taeler_Hendrix, and Taeler is Taeler. I know people kind of mix that a lot. So Twitter is @Taeler_Hendrix. You can find me on Instagram with @TaelerHendrixROH. You can find my website, which is taelerhendrix.net. And you can find my YouTube channel by typing in youtube.com/TaelerHendrix. And you can find my weekly podcast on Vince Russo's brand, and it's on russosbrand.com. And click in the search in the top right is put Taeler Talks with Taeler Hendrix. And then let's see, you can find me on Cameo, cameo.com/Taeler Hendrix for personalized videos. I love getting to connect with my fans. I have a very good rating, guys. And then t-shirts, if you want to, you don't have to, is prowrestlingtees.com/Taeler Hendrix. And then my book is available on barnesandnobles.com as well as Amazon. And yes, it is available in Canada and the UK. I get that question a lot. All you have to do is type in the search engine, "It's Not Easy Being a Sloth," and then you will find my book by Taeler Hendrix. It's Not Easy Being a Sloth. So those are all the ways you can connect with me, interact with me, follow me, or find merchandise by me.
It's called "It's Not Easy Being a Sloth," did you say?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's about a sloth whose dream is to become a race car driver.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Thank you.
So, and I also read, last question here, that you wanted to get into acting. You obviously have a book. You look like you could be in a horror movie or something like that, like is with a goth look, or I don't mean it as an insult because I like witches, but you look kind of like a witch. But
My mother would
go
be
into
so
that.
proud. That's not an insult to me at all. I like it a lot. Carly Perez actually gave me a lot of really good advice a few years ago about my look and stuff that looked good on me and stuff, and she was very helpful with that. So I'm actually really grateful to Carly Leilani Perez. She was really cool about that. It took me a very long time to be confident in my own skin and to like myself. I talked with quite a few girls about, what we thought we were all going to look like when we grew up one day. And I was always so disappointed in what I saw, if you can believe it. I always wanted to be like 5'9", like Tori Wilson. And I wanted to look like Gwen Stefani and like all this other stuff. And it's like the complete opposite. But now I love it. There's only one me. And so if I don't love me, who else is going to, So that was kind of a big life lesson that I hope more people can learn too, is like, love yourself. There's only one you, man, for good or for bad, whatever that means, there's only one you. So yeah, it's not an insult to me at all to hear I look like witchy and gothy and stuff. I love it. Yeah, I have goals for television and films. I have some stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about just yet. So stay tuned, everybody that's in the Tequila Army. Yeah, I love it. I love horror films. I love like historical documentaries. I love action films. I love kid movies. I love everything I can get my hands on, honestly. Like anything from Lord of the Rings to The Wrong Missy. That movie, I've seen it about 30 times on Netflix. Still makes me laugh. I loved Jumanji, the first one that had the first remake that came out with The Rock and Jack Black and stuff. I love all kinds of stuff. I don't know.
Well, we wish you the best.
Marvel movies too. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for talking to us. We did have a few technical issues in this one. I'm going to try and fix them, but I really hope that one day we can do an in-person one and maybe travel to some haunted places, because the fans have been wanting that. But it might do better with someone like you and me, because we have a lot of male fans on this channel. You're nicer to look at on camera than me.
I don't know if you're a believer or not, but I am definitely a believer, guys. After growing up with this my entire life, like I didn't leave that house until I was 22 years old. We moved into it when I was 5. So I have a very healthy respect for things that go bump in the night. You would probably be safer with me.
Yeah, I am a believer. I am a believer. Believe me on that. But unfortunately, I actually rented a haunted house for 3 days earlier this year, but nothing happened. I was so disappointed.
I probably knew that you wanted it so badly, so that it was like,
Yeah, I tried everything to try and stir something up.
oh,
Nothing
you're
happened.
the bad people. You were bad. That is bad.
Well, yes.
Same.
I had my Ouija board and I was trying to get something going.
I will not. No, I did one vignette with those, but I didn't have to actually play with it. They were magnets. The producer person used magnets underneath, so I would not have to touch it. I will not. Not you guys. Like people don't understand like what those things can do. Oh no. We weren't even allowed to keep one in the house. Like that's how much like my mother like knew about them and was just like, nope.
That's funny. Well, I guess I have an evil side to me. Doesn't bother me that much. I actually interviewed an exorcist on here last year.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, he had the same warning to me about Ouija boards.
And the same thing, I grew up with what are those called? You have your hand, you have this, and you have the stone. What is that?
I've seen them.
CTE brain.
Yeah, there's a rock at the end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had one of those growing up. I was allowed to have that, which was probably a mistake. Because ghost friend that scared the living daylights out. And to this day my sister still remembers like ghost friend. Like people think all the stuff kids talk about are imaginary friends. I'm here to tell you they are not all imaginary, y'all.
Yeah.
Pay attention to your kids.
Well, do you have any final message for us here to close this off? Thanks again for everything. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I would love to come back on some more and, discuss a lot of the stuff that you have done. I know I was kind of just like, but anytime I get to talk with people that, know wrestling and appreciate wrestling, that excites me so much, especially when you yourself can relate to the stories and the people and stuff like that. And I think you've done a lot of amazing things. So I would love to come back and do some stuff like that and the ghost stuff as well, because yeah, I love it.
And maybe also sometimes as my dog's stretching, we do have a wrestling company here, Great North Wrestling. Lufisto is our champion right now, and we're always on the lookout for challengers.
I have wrestled Lufisto several times, so I am very familiar with her work. I actually just recently posted something, I think, with her in it. Yeah, I wrestled her several times. Actually, one of the times I picked her up in my tombstone pile driver, and people like couldn't believe it. And I'm like, I'm stronger than I look, guys. I guess I would just leave everybody with saying like, thank you so much for having me. Like, I really did have so much fun with this. I don't do these very often, so when I do them, it's because I'm really excited about it. And I hope like people just have like a new side to Taeler Hendrix that they didn't really get to see before. I try to interact with as many people as I can on social media, but it's just me. So it's very hard to see everything. Things fall through the cracks and then I feel bad. So I try to put 100% into everything that I do and kind of just like live life to the fullest because it's the one life I got, and like I said, I owe it to the people that came before me, and I want to make a difference for the people that come later and, just do some epic shizit in this lifetime, so that way I have no regrets when I'm dying, when I'm old and I'm gray, and I can look back and be like, wow, that was pretty awesome. We did something really cool and worthwhile.
And to absolutely close this off, I'll put you on the spot. Let's say you were teaming with me to fight Cody Brandy Rhodes. You're good on the mic. What would you tell them?
We're gothic, we're evil. You think that just because you're going to come here and you're going to act like you are the nightmare, there is nothing that you can do to us that our lives haven't already seen fit to do to us. I look at you, and all I can see is disdain. You are a joke. You are too big that you've forgotten just how small you started. You are everything that you hated. Now, you want to call yourself a nightmare? I will make your life a living nightmare, and we'll look damn good while doing it. Make no mistake, this isn't all elite. This is everyone versus you. And I've made my home in nightmares. I relish and rave in the dark. I have made a feast from crumbs. And now it's your turn. See you soon.
He has the blood of the American dream running through his veins. When he is stupid enough to step into the ring with Hannibal, the death dealer, his blood will flow the streets and flood the city. I will show no mercy. This blood you are looking at right now is just a drop in the bucket compared to what I'm going to do to you, Cody Rhodes. This is a challenge, Rhodes. Fight me. Hannibal, fight Hannibal. This will not be for the weak of heart.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.